Hello my loves, welcome to my autumn reading bullet journal setup for 2024. I like to do these setup videos every couple of months, and I think this particular spread covers the books that I've read from the middle of August to today, which is November 11th, but I think I also cut it off a little bit before November 11th. Anyway, but it's about 3 months of books, and this has got to be my best couple of reading months of the entire year. In August alone, I read 12 books, which was kind of insane, and September and October I didn't read that much, but I think just having so many in October really just pushed this little section over the edge in how many numbers of books that I read. So in today's spread, we're going to be talking about a total of 22 books, but I don't want to talk about my opinions for all of them like in this voiceover because unfortunately the video isn't very long. And if you guys didn't know, I do have a second channel. It's called Sophie, and that's where I post a lot of book content like reading vlogs and book recommendations and book hauls and wrap-ups and things. So if you want to hear my thoughts about all of these books in specific and potentially even watch me like vlog my process reading them, I have a bajillion videos on my other channel. I post every week on there as well, so I will link it down below if you want to go check it out and hear more in-depth thoughts about these. I also post book reviews on Storygraph and Goodreads whenever I can. Definitely a star rating, but sometimes also a review. So anyway, enough of the self-plugs. I just wanted to mention that, which is why I'm not going to be talking about each of these books in detail today, but I do want to talk about the best books and the worst books that I've read so far to this autumn. So starting out with the best books, I think I'm going to talk about a couple here. So I read Reckless by Lauren Roberts in the Powerless series and really loved that one. Gave it 4.5 stars. I read Six of Crows, just the first one, not the second one, but I gave that one also 4.5 stars. It was so good. I have the sequel and I cannot wait to finish that one. The Right Move by Liz Tomford is the second book in her Windy City series that I was continuing a couple weeks ago. Again, 4.5 stars. Really good. That romance is fantastic if you want a contemporary romance because both characters are so amazing, so wholesome. They care for each other so much. It's actually so good. Recently, I just read Lights Out, which I think is one of the last books that's going to be on this spread. I gave that one 4.5 stars too. This is actually a stalker romance, which don't get it twisted, okay? I also read Haunting Adeline this month, which is also a stalker romance if you didn't know. And that book I hated. We'll talk about that in just a second. But the Lights Out book that I just read was basically what Haunting Adeline wanted to be. It was about stalking, but it was honestly like hilariously funny. Like that book was so entertaining. It was so good. Totally recommend. 4.5 stars if you want a darker, but honestly incredibly comical rom-com. Then I reread Saving Six, which is the third book in the Boys of Tommen series a couple weeks ago. And that was obviously a 5-star for me. That entire series so far, I think has been mostly 5 stars. So I read it or reread it, I guess, because I knew it was going to be so good. And then the only 5-star book that I've gotten that wasn't a reread so far this section of the year was For the Wolf by Hannah Witten. This is a very gothic, atmospheric fantasy romance book that I've been waiting on reading for a long time, and it really blew me out of the water. It was so beautiful and so good, so I gave it 5 stars. Probably the best book that I've read so far this autumn, if you don't count Saving Six, because that was a reread. But let's talk about the worst books that I've also read, because if you're gonna have some positives, you also gotta have some negatives, am I right? So I read the Lost Boys series, which is a series of 4 short, like 200-page or less novellas that are Peter Pan retellings, but like super dark. Don't ask me where I got this recommendation. I have no clue where I first found it, but I was somehow determined to finish the series. I gave all of the books 2.5 stars and dropped them down to 2 stars later in the month, but I think it was just like an addicting, like guilty pleasure read. I hated all of them. I thought they were so bad, but I still for some reason was really interested in finishing them, I guess. So I read the entire series for better or worse, and that was definitely not high on my list as far as rankings. I also read Obsession by, I forgot the name of the author, but you'll guys will see it in just a second. This was a serial killer romance and I hated it. Now, I'm not opposed to serial killer romances. I told you guys that I read the stalker romance and gave it 4.5 stars, but this one was just awful. I feel like the love interest was absolutely irredeemable for his actions, and I feel like they had zero chemistry and it was super dumb. So this is another one that I finished because I was somehow very invested in the story, but as a whole, I actually hated like the concept and execution. So I thought it was bad, but for some reason I still completed the book, all 400 pages. And speaking of a book that I hated but still finished, I also read Haunting Adeline this month, and that was for a reading vlog on my second channel, so I did vlog that entire process. I was very tentative going into this book. I kind of knew all the bad things people said about it online, but I still, gave it a fair shot, and I hated it. This was the only book, or no, I think I gave Obsession 1 star too, but I gave Haunting Adeline 1 star. It was just awful. I talk about it a lot in my wrap-up video for September and October on my second channel, and also of course the vlog where I read the book. Basically, I think that the main character is a hypocrite and a sexual assaulter, and I don't think that that is a good love interest. So enough said, I'm not going to rant again about this book, but I think the hype for it is absolutely unjustified. I think it glorifies and romanticizes very bad things, and it was awful. So do not read Haunting Adeline, please. Trust me, you can definitely skip that one. But those are probably my worst books that I've read, so definitely a large range in this couple of months. I had a lot of 4.5 stars, a couple 5 stars, but I also had a lot of 2 and 1 stars, so they got really good range, I suppose you could say. I didn't calculate my average rating as far as stars go for all 22 of these books. I probably should have done that before I started filming, but I will put the average rating here on the screen if I can find it later. Again, 22 books, so a good mix of high and low ratings, but I guess it's probably somewhere around a 3-star, maybe lower 3-star rating. I don't know. That's my guess, but I'll put the right number somewhere here on the screen. Just to talk about the spread for a second, as you can see, I used a lot of scrapbooking pieces and just kind of layered in the corners, specifically in the bottom right and top left is where I put that background paper. And this is where I got a lot of inspiration for the color palette of this particular spread. I didn't know where I wanted to go with it exactly, but I really liked the mush of colors, if you want to call it that. Like a lot of oranges, reds, and some teals, and almost the same shades, so they all kind of blend together, and it doesn't look very contrasty, but I kind of like that it's all, like I said, kind of mushy together. And then I also have a big sunflower picture in the bottom left. There's some layering in the top right. As you guys can see, I also have a stats section in the bottom left of the right spread. So like I said, 22 books, and I think that is 10,213 pages. So that's actually incredible. I can't believe I read 10,000 pages since August. That's like wild to me. But anyway, so this is basically just the background behind all of the books, and I'm going to start putting in the book covers that I printed out and cut around. They're very small. They're all like 1 inch tall because I had to fit them all on the spread. I didn't want to look too busy, so I tried to only put the pictures where there are white spots, white gaps. Took a little bit of rearranging to put everything where I wanted it, and then I had to rearrange it again to make sure that they were all in order of me reading them. I think they're all in order. The one that might be messed up is I think I read Lights Out after I read All Roads Lead Here, and in the spread I flipped them, but not a big deal. They're both at the end. But anyway, all that to be said, there is somehow magically 22 books that I fit in this like little weird shape in the middle. And I'm just going to start gluing them in, or more like taping them in with double-sided tape on the backs of each of these little book covers. Now that you can see the covers, I want to point out it's very ironic how many covers that have skulls on them. Like it was October in this season, so I guess that kind of justifies it. But I think all 4 of the Lost Boys books have skulls on them. Then Haunting Adeline has a skull on it. Lights Out has a skull on it. That might be it, but that's still 6 books with a skull, which is kind of crazy if you consider it. And also there were a lot of books about like dark romance. Like I said, 4 of those Lost Boys ones were all dark romance. There are also quite a few about like serial killers. Like Lights Out was about serial killer and stalker. Haunting Adeline is about serial killers and stalkers. I think Hawk was a dark romance. Obsession was definitely about a serial killer. Man was on death row. That's a love interest. He was on death row. Absolutely insane. Also, Butcher and Blackbird I read during this period as well. I think it's the first book on the list. That one is about 2 different serial killers falling in love. So I guess I really had a thing this past couple of weeks or months about reading either stalker books or serial killer books, and quite a big range. Some of them are 1 stars, some of them are 3, some of them are 4.5. Like, I feel like I can look past some of these crazy plots with like serial killers and stalkers, and I rate my books instead based on like the character like relationships and stuff. So don't try me. It's not the serial killer or the stalker part of the book that actually like turns me off of it. it. Trust, it's actually just whether or not the characters had chemistry. Because my ranking system makes absolute sense. And also, I said that I reread one book in this season that was Saving Six by Chloe Walsh. As far as any new genres, I also read The Nightingale by, oh, what's her last name? I forgot her last name off the top of my head. I feel terrible, but I read The Nightingale, and this was a new genre for me. It was historical fiction without any romance in it. So, I mean, I've read that before, but not a lot recently. So that was me like kind of branching out a little bit this month. Everything else is mostly either romance or fantasy. I honestly thought that I was going to read more fantasy and fantasy girl fall this year, but unfortunately I did not. I kind of slumped out of fantasy because everything was looking the same, so I got really tired of it. So that's why you see a lot more contemporary in this section. But yeah, that's going to finish out this spread. Basically, like I said, quick video, but there are a lot of books on here, so I hope you guys enjoyed watching me put together this spread and the process of this video. As always, subscribe to this channel if you want to see more bullet journal content from me, and like I said, my other channel and my Goodreads and Storygraph, all my social media are going to be linked in the description box below. I love you guys so much. Have an amazing day, and I will link my last video on the screen right here.